To this special live streaming thing that I promised yesterday once I arrived at the Atlanta airport, because we are reporting from Atlanta, specifically from the CMG Impact Conference 2023. And I have with me the keynote presenter, like a personality for this situation, for this event. Sir, welcome. And would you mind sharing with the audience who are you and what's your deal?
Well, I'm the keynote. They should know who I am. But no, good morning. I am JD Bagnell. I am in product management with the mainframe group at Broadcom. Been with Broadcom now for 13 years in the mainframe and have been going to many of these conferences throughout, making sure that we understand what our customers need and make sure they understand what we are doing to meet those needs currently.
Excellent. Such a, I would say, a trooper for what we were talking earlier. You have lots of experience. You have been out there.
Yeah.
And in general, going back to your keynote today, for some background information, yesterday we had a special dinner for all the presenters, where I had an opportunity to start talking. Jamie, how would you?
JD.
Yeah. JD, yeah. It says here. And of course, here in the performance testing world, we have some questions often. We hear the word mainframe and it's like twisting heads. And I, of course, had lots of questions. But before we get a little into that, what was your keynote about? What were you talking on it? I know there was AI, kind of buzzwords, but not just buzzwords. Mind sharing a little bit with the audience?
Yeah, so I mean, basically, what I was trying to lay out was approximately what is happening in the industry, specifically, not necessarily just to the mainframe, but from the ability to react to situations in the IT environment that affect business. And really trying to understand the application element of that and how anything that's happening in the environment is affecting revenue generating aspects of that. The key thing there really is bringing that information together in an insightful way that's intelligent so that someone can make a decision a lot faster, or, hopefully automate that response if possible. We all know that there's a talent issue from the perspective of the mainframe. I've got people I'm working with. One just retired last year. He was 84 years old and was still working in the mainframe environment. Now, he was a software provider and he was a consultant for us. But I have a guy that's probably in his mid-70s that's still an architect working. But these guys are, these people are starting to get to that end of their decision of their career where they're really ready to take that rest and go play golf and go do the things that they want. And we have to make sure the resiliency of the business is retained. Plus a lot of those people that are leaving, they want to leave that legacy. There's a lot of things that they've delivered and provided to the business, to the IT environment, to retain and grow that business. And they want to be able to make sure that when they leave, that the people behind them have learned and can actually continue to be productive going forward. It's best for the business, best for those people. And the mainframe, unfortunately, not unfortunately, but mainframe, fortunately, is not going away. It's still the fastest, it's still the most secure. It still can handle the most transactions. And we're looking at this, and it's still probably 75, 80, 85% of all transactions touch a mainframe at some point. And it was even greater during the pandemic when everything was happening. Transactional, business, relationship management was all happening virtually. And, everything was, driving that growth. And when something hits the mainframe, it's just not a transaction and it happens. It's a transaction that usually spurs something else to do. ATM comes in and, I want to go and see my balance of my bank. It'll start an application over there. Or I want to move money. Okay, well, it'll go and say, take, the application or move money from this account. That's an application. Move the money to this account. It's a separate application. And, those type of things is when we've seen a transaction touch the mainframe, invariably it spurs at minimum 10 additional transactions on that.
In the backend, I guess it's several things, especially nowadays with the service and microservice structure. Many of them are just like dedicated to go and touch the mainframe and get back the information. And this, you mentioned in the keynote some analysis of these processes, these logs, these transactions that were happening with AI. Would you mind explaining a little bit, or?
Yeah, I mean, it's, there's a lot of different things that people talk about AI and machine learning and different things that are out there. And they're very good at a lot of things that they want to do, but it's not something that happens, overnight. The key piece is really bringing the ability to correlate the information from across the different subject matter areas within an IT environment. Systems management, we have network management, you have automation, you have storage. There's a lot of things that are happening in those areas, but the real key is understanding when an issue or an alert or something is triggered, that we understand all of the subsequent sub-elements that make that up so that we can get to the resolution a lot faster. As we gather those, it's really being able to say, okay, I've seen this before. This is what we did the last time. Let's also institute that this time. And we start to build that loop,
knowledge,
the knowledge and the return loop of things. When I see this, do this type of things. That retains the legacy that the generation that's going into retirement has done, because they've built that and they've answered those questions, and it supports the resiliency of the people following them coming forward with their knowledge and be able to be productive, right out of the chute. There's a lot of different things from AI. I mean, I was talking to you earlier. There was an announcement. I think Logic.io is the name of the company, but it's a open source observability solution. They're now they're including Chat GPT, which is the big buzzword, now currently. It's pretty interesting. I've done some things with that where it said, write me a one-page paper on why such and such is more is a better solution than whatever, and boom, it knocked it out. Now, it wasn't absolutely perfect, but it's
a work in progress.
It's a work in progress, and it wrote at least a baseline thing that was a lot faster than I could have written it. And then, you have to go back and do some editorials like that.
It's interesting that you mentioned right now with building that experience, building that knowledge, and that AI gets somewhat better. And it pairs up with these professional mainframe engineers retiring. Are you kind of closing the gap of that need? Because they are living with all that experience. And if that experience is somewhat translated into these machine learning or data pools that we can have.
Yeah, I mean, we continue to try to make sure that we are gathering and retaining any of that knowledge that is in the system. You can't beat 40 years of experience. There's some people that have been working on this. Todd Gagel, who was my cohort that was supposed to, he's the distinguished engineer with Broadcom. I mean, he's been with Broadcom for, I think, 35 years.
Wow.
He and I are the same age, 57, 58 years old.
And you yourself mentioned that you were on that path as well, right?
Yeah, retirement. Yeah. It's a lot closer than it used. It's a lot closer than it used to be. When you're in your 30s and you're thinking retirement is way far away, it's a lot closer now. But yeah, I mean, it's really being able to take that information as much as possible and pass it on, that we can automate those processes, because continuously we're being asked to do more with less. Hopefully, as we can use AI and ML to do some of that, we can make them as productive as they can be with the knowledge and things that we've captured.
And I mean, you're pointing out that need and the information, the experience, and everything that is out there around mainframes. And something that my question right away: why is it still relevant, important, and why would you say we still need to pay attention to and not? I mean, the cloud is the rage and everything, but why would you say it's still here? something that many of the people listening or watching may not have been aware. Like it's a word that some modern engineers will not even hear about, but it's still relevant. It's still quite out there in a big way. You just explained it to me yesterday. Would you mind sharing?
Yeah. So, I mean, there's different things. First of all, you can look at the mainframe as the first cloud provider.
Yeah, I mean,
In reality,
tomato, it's
tomato,
mainframe in the cloud.
Yeah. But the key piece is, the size of the company and the number of transactions and things that they're running. There's a lot of code, a lot of critical applications that are still viable and running on the mainframe. The cost of replication of that to move it off the mainframe, when you're talking millions of lines of code, is astronomical potentially in cost and time. Invariably, the critical applications are things that are revenue generating in a lot of times, and with them being on the mainframe and somewhat stable, with the mainframe having an average 99.9% uptime, then they're getting the security of that and understanding that the cost benefit of that is outweighed by the number of transactions and the amount of business they're pushing through.
And I'm wondering as well. We mentioned the security and regulation component, right? Mainframes are, and this surprised me, still kind of like a cheaper option to keep some of those data that has to be secured. I mean, if anyone watching has ever had like medical records or bank records, all that you mentioned, it's really important. And I remember these data warehouses where there were these movable hard drives that a machine would be accommodating. That's still happening today, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, a lot of customers are, from a security perspective, yes. I mean, one of the most secure environments that you will see out there. You'll talk to our security teams in the solutions that they provide to make sure that they're retaining currency and things in the industry. But yeah, I mean, from the records and the ability of backup and different things, you're going to see virtual taping. Yeah, there's a lot of that where they take things to the cloud, but people are still using tape. It's become a lot less expensive. It's a lot less expensive, or used to be greater than your solid state drives at that point in time. But it's also the security of that information. Retaining and taking that information, being able to take that information in the original copy, store it physically somewhere. I always talk about Iron Mountain and things, being able to temperature controlled, secure storage and things like that, because there are pieces that, of things that are there in that type of storage, original masters from musicians you and I were speaking about yesterday, Nina Simone, who was a jazz singer back in the 20s and stuff. Yeah, everything's been digitized, but a lot of her original recordings and stuff are in an Iron Mountain vault, securely stored, to ensure that they're retained, and just kind of like the seed vault that they have in is it Iceland or Norway, where they're retaining those original pieces in the event of some disaster.
Actually, like in line with some of those disasters, you just made me think of movies.
Yes.
Series, TV recordings, things that
original films. Yeah.
You transport into tape and you have them secured. It may not be the original celluloid that.
Right.
Those things are burnable like crazy. Like we have heard those examples that a fire in a studio and we don't have, I don't know,
Gone with the Wind or something, the originals,
the true originals,
yes.
And we can just work based out of copies. We don't want to have those situations. I mean, movies are a very good example, but with bank data, confidential information,
Definitely.
all of these situations where maybe some governments will not be at ease just putting them on the cloud, or even like European regulations. So you deal a lot with those?
Yeah, definitely with, what is it, the GSR? The regulations essentially, we have to deal with that, specifically ensuring that personal data doesn't leave the country that it was originated in. There's big stipulations and regulations around that and how they do business, and so we need to be cognizant of that. We have the ability with some things around things with storage and things where we can actually look and see and come back and tell you about the content of certain files and items, and if there's any PID, personal information, available on that. Because sometimes, as people do development and somebody will make a copy of a data set and they'll be doing some type of testing with it, and then invariably, it will come and, pop up somewhere that it shouldn't be, and, really understanding where that information is and making sure it is retained securely. Key element of auditing and the different things that are required of our businesses around the world. Specifically, the regulations are different definitely wherever.
And that brings to my mind not only the data. You may have a piece of code that is proprietary, like copyrighted or owned. You don't want it like in the cloud. And we have heard all of these examples, like, this government finds out that their data was not stored inside of the country, or was in some bunker in Ireland or something like that. And it's some of these things that we always go with it's the excitement of the new toy, the cloud, and send everything there. But there are some things where we need to be careful and still get into control. And out of our conversation yesterday, I was like, oh my God, there's so much that still it's important. Not just because silly government full of regulations is making me. No, you don't want that floating out there in the world.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. And, it is the things, I've heard of people, you always see people like their phones getting hacked or different things and, taking information. I mean, essentially that's a cloud, provide the device there if you look at it. But yeah, the security of that information, whether it's proprietary or copyright in working with the cloud, definitely the cloud has, its focus on the workflows and the workloads that it should be doing, and can be doing most efficiently, most economically. But there's still that workload that needs to be managed, not only on the mainframe because of security, but also just the amount of information and the processing element of that information to continue to drive the business.
I think mostly that's another key element. We hear still companies running COBOL.
Yes.
We hear companies still not because they cannot or should not, just because it would be a gargantuan effort, not cost efficient, and just it's running. Don't move it, don't break it. It's still important. And we still need to know as well the performance of it, how it is doing. And I liked a lot the one that you were saying, like not to drown, get up to our neck in data and logs and records. That's also very important to. Have you ever had the beeper situation when you have to support something and you're in the movie theater or in a family event, when there's so much data, so much logs or alerts, suddenly you'll get boom, 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 and like you gave an example of the red light turn on, like, don't worry about it, it will turn off.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, that's the whole thing. And what I was trying to talk about in my keynote is the intelligent insights. There was a company I was mentioning earlier that was in their operations facilities about 10 years ago, and they had the big board up there and they had these red lights flashing, and I'm like, well, hey, what are the red lights for? And the gentleman just told me, and it was hilarious because he said, I don't know, but it'll go away in a little bit. So,
and they were the ones in charge.
Yeah, and they were the one in charge. Incessantly, because they were being inundated with noise, essentially, is what they do. The key piece there is, that's what we're trying to do, is reduce that. Only surface the things with insight that are important elements for you to be able to, the important elements for your attention. I had a customer said, I just want a whiteboard and just show me something, pop something up if it's pertinent to me, different things.
Otherwise, unplug me.
No, yeah, unplug me. So, the key element of that, of bringing things together, understanding how things interact, and how they touch each other is key to, your remediation process, because if I get an alert or I get something that's popped up, it's a red shining there, I'm hoping that that red means there's something I need to do. Because if it's there and there's nothing I need to do, it's just noise. So the ability to do that and contextually draw down deeper and understand how these things interact is key to that productivity of productivity of the insights, and making sure that we are giving them domain knowledge at a point where they can look at the information and make a decision without having to say, okay, CPU spiked here. That means, oh, storage also happened over here about the same time. Are they related? Yeah, a guy with 40 years experience could sit down and say, all right, whenever that happens, this is what's going on, da, 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 da. Well, it's capturing that knowledge and being able to pass it on to ensure that the people that follow are able to be productive in the environment and manage
those type of disruptions.
manage into that next business decade.
Because I guess you don't want a true big problem to be among those red lights, and they are like, nah, don't pay attention to
Exactly.
that, and the other room is on fire, right?
Yeah, if it's 5 reds and one's important, but there's 5 of them there.
They are used to not to
where do I
look at it.
start? Do I start with the 3rd red one or the 1st red one and move through? And the other 5 may be just things that, hey, somebody opened the outside door.
Shouldn't be red, should be orange, or shouldn't even
whatever. The key thing is to try to automate that process and provide that insight so that they're making the decisions, they're seeing the information that's pertinent, and they're not inundated with that noise, as I mentioned earlier.
Don't get inundated with noise. Be sure that what you are instrumenting is important and relevant to your team. And I would say pay attention to mainframes. They are still around.
Yes.
They are still important. May not be as shiny and trendy as the cloud nowadays, but they are still there and will be for a while.
Definitely.
So, amigo, thank you very much for coming. Just last words to the audience. Whatever you want to give your contact, say hello.
Yeah,
Mom,
JD Bagnell with Broadcom. You can reach out to me, james.bagnell@broadcom.com. If you got any questions, things that you may want to talk about, we're always interested in understanding our customers' problems, to making sure that our direction is what the market is needing, but also what our customers are needing to solve their problems. Mainframe is not going away. It is continuing to support new things, containers and all of the Red Hat, Linux and things. As IBM has been interacting with them, you're going to see a lot of that start to become pretty prolific on the mainframe as well. The mainframe, if you look at one mainframe, a lot of times somebody will even tell you one mainframe can process every Google search in the world in a 24-hour period on one machine.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Well, depending on the machine, right?
Depending on the machine. Well, yeah, if you
mainframe.
get that, but the mainframe, is very, what I want to say, flexible in the thing, but it can process that amount of data in one environment. So
stay vigilant, because again, we hear the cloud, we hear all these things. It's the same thing, only that you don't own it. It's another mainframe that is over there, and you don't see it that much, but you could be part of these Google engineers or an AWS to be on those basements that they have, and that'll get interesting.
Yeah, and it's key. I mean, the hybrid environment is the thing we're focused on. Everything we're doing, we're building it with the newest technologies and newest communication capabilities, because we understand that the mainframe is not the end all. The cloud is going to be here. Open systems are going to be here for a long time, probably till the end of time, and the ability to communicate between the systems is key from an organizational's revenue tracking perspective. You look at applications run the whole gamut. They don't just happen on one specific environment.
They're spread all over.
Invariably you have a request for something. It's going to come through the cloud, come through the web, touch the mainframe at some point, and needs to go back. Well, that person, that application, that revenue generator needs to understand what's happening in that, so that they understand if there is a significant growth all of a sudden on their application, is that good or bad? Is it bad code, Or is it, oh, holy, we're getting so many transactions through because the revenue, because we're got a great business model and we're making a lot of money. So,
oh yeah,
definitely
money,
case.
balance, income, expenses,
Yeah.
that as well is going to be critical. Well, it's always critical, right?
Yes.
Performance of our machines.
Yep.
It's crucial. But I don't want to hold you too long.
All right, thank
we
you.
are going to have lunch in a moment. So thank you very much, Lily.
Yep.
Really appreciate it. And stay tuned, everyone, because I'm going to be bringing some more speakers. I'm going to give you some information myself about my talk. But stay tuned today and tomorrow. CMG Impact 2023, reporting directly from Atlanta. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Take care.
All right, man.
And adios, everyone.
Adios.